Welcome to the Green Bay Football Corporation. And today I want to talk about Love, Jordan Love, and his first claim at ownership of the Chicago Bears. Overall, he went out and had a decent performance. His stats look better in some areas than others, but overall, an optimistic and encouraging start to the Jordan Love era in Green Bay, even though they played in Chicago. So let's get right down to it. One last thing before we do. If you like this shirt here, rep some Jordan Love. You can see it up in the channel banner above, the link to the website where you can go buy this shirt. Really appreciate anybody that goes and does that. Greatly supports the channel and helps me come back here and continue to bring you outstanding Packers content. So, Love's performance, 15 of 27, 245 yards, 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Let's first look at that completion percentage. 15 of 27, not the greatest. A little more than 50%, 55.6 to be exact, which was like 25th in the league. Room for improvement for sure. Granted, he had a couple drops, both of them coming from running backs. Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon each dropped one. And then he didn't seem to fully be on the same page with all of his receivers yet. And that's bound to happen. All of the receivers the Packers have, especially without Christian Watson out there in week 1, have effectively 2 years of experience or less. And the only ones that had 2 years of experience out there were Romeo Doubs, who played a limited snap count, though he balled out with his 2 touchdowns. And, Samori Toure, who was only targeted twice. So kind of a lack of experience out there, but a bunch of new guys who, looked well, looked good in camp, building some of that. But the speed of the game is different, especially in game, but also in the regular season. Even preseason is a little bit slower than the regular season. So I expect there to be some growing pains with that. Like Luke Musgrave and Samori Toure and even Malik Heath will all get into some of those, misses that Jordan Love had. But if you even just take the 2 drops out of the equation, his percentage jumps up to 63%, which is the adjusted completion percentage per PFF as well. So a little bit better, more serviceable, but still a lot of room to improve on the completion percentage. The really, really encouraging part of all this, though, is he was outstanding when it mattered the most. 3rd and 4th down, he was 8 for 10 for 141 yards and 2 touchdowns. And on top of that, he scrambled 3 times for 12 yards as well in those plays. One of those went for a first down, and another one set up 4th and manageable. I believe it was 4th and 3, which is what we ended up hitting the 35-yard touchdown to Aaron Jones on. So Love on 3rd and 4th down, outstanding. And with that, he had the perfect passer rating, 158.3 in those situations as well. And while we're on the topic of that passer rating, he had the highest passer rating in the league in week 1. So granted, we saw a lot of guys, Mahomes struggled without Kelsey. Josh Allen struggled a bit out there. Joe Burrow really struggled, didn't even make it to 100 yards passing. So some down performances for the rest of the NFL. And I wouldn't expect Jordan Love to have the highest passer rating, week in and week out. But 123.2 passer rating, not a bad day, especially on your first start as QB1. And a big part that goes into that passer rating is just how well protected he was. So the Packers offensive line only gave up 2 pressures. He was only pressured 16.7% of the time, which was the fewest or the lowest pressure percentage of any quarterback in the NFL. That doesn't mean that it was a free ticket and that everything was a gimme though from there. For instance, the next, lowest pressure grade was Kenny Pickett. And Kenny Pickett was pressured 19.6% of the time. But with that, his passer rating was only 68.4. So significantly lower than Jordan Love's. And actually, Sports Info and Solutions has an independent quarterback rating stat that they use that really just takes into account what the quarterback can control. And with that, Kenny Pickett was actually graded as a 58.2 IQR per Sports Info and Solutions, a drop of a little over 10 points, while Jordan Love actually rose to a 126.3 IQR per SIS. So Jordan Love did a good job with what he could control, but you can't really fault him for the fact that he's got a stellar offensive line. It's really great credit to Brian Gutekunst and company, Matt LaFleur, and Luke Butkus out there really getting these offensive linemen ready to go out there and perform at a high level, finding that talent in later rounds in the draft and really just giving them the opportunity to succeed, which Jordan Love is exceedingly grateful for. So just because he wasn't pressured a lot doesn't mean that it was going to be, like just pitch and catch out there. Another thing with that too is it wasn't like he was just throwing high percentage completions, close to the line of scrimmage. He had the 5th highest average depth of target. His ADOT was a little over 10. I believe it was 10.6 per PFF. Like I said, 5th highest in the NFL. Some people are going to argue that he scored one of his touchdowns on a little angle route on 4th and 3 to Aaron Jones, where he took it to the house from 51 yards out. Like, yes, that in particular play was about a 5 or 6 yard depth of target. But some of those clutch plays on 3rd and 4th down, where those plays where Jaden Reed was coming up big for the Packers offense, a lot of those were 13 to 20 yards downfield for those targets. So Love wasn't just a one-trick pony throwing it, laterally. He was also stretching the field a bit. And just for a comparison with that, Justin Fields, because I'm sure we all watched the Packer-Bear game, Justin Fields had an average depth of target of 3.6. And it showed in a lot of those, dump offs to the backs or, little receiver screens that the Packers defense just blew up all day. And just so you know, going into this week against the Falcons, Desmond Ridder had the lowest average depth of target in the league this week, and that was a 3.2 ADOT for him. A lot of his passes were literally to their running backs, either swing passes or little screens, things of that nature. They did not try to force the ball down the field at all in that game. Really, he only targeted 3 or 5 players out there. 3 of them were running backs and a tight end, and then only 1 receiver that actually caught a pass. It'll be something to watch for this week as well, as we've got another guy who similar-ish to Justin Fields with, again, outstanding running offense. But that's, for another video that you can check out. Going back to Fields, I have no idea how, but PFF graded him higher as an overall offense grade than Jordan Love. Granted, it was by 0.1 points, not a monumental thing, but it wasn't like Fields was out there torching the Packers as he did or has in the past with his legs. I mean, he had 9 carries for 56 yards, hardly an outstanding day. Granted, yes, like 6.6 yards per carry or something to that effect is a nice, yard per carry average, especially for a quarterback. But he can do way worse than that. And with that, he was just a non-factor, really, in the passing game. I referenced his ADOT earlier, just short passes, not a whole lot down the field, turned down a lot of open looks. And that goes to show, in his passer grade, which was actually lower than Love's. Fields had a passer grade of 49.4, while Love had a 57.7 passer grade. But I feel like that passing grade for Jordan Love was way lower than it ought to have been. Yes, it wasn't a perfect day out there. He did have some missed throws, and we'll get into that shortly here as we get into the film breakdown. But you look at the stat line, and box score scouting is not ideal. Context does matter. But the context of the rest of it and the fact that, Love, probably takes some heat on some of those misses to, Luke Musgrave on that deep shot. But we don't know that that's really Love missing a throw as much as it could be that Musgrave, young tight end in his first game in the NFL, doesn't run that route the way that it's supposed to be run or intended to be run. So a lot of those things to consider. I think Jordan Love should have had a higher passer rating according to PFF. And, I personally think, I couldn't have asked for a better start from Love in his first game of the year. And, at that point, let's just go ahead and dive right into the tape. The first play I want to look at here is actually on the first drive that the Packers had. We started out in great field position, ran the ball twice to basically no effect, and found ourselves in 3rd and 13. And he goes out here and he's targeting Romeo Doubs. The way I want to kind of look at this is his decisiveness and knowing exactly where he's going with this ball. Doubs is one of his most trusted receivers on this receiving core, and he just lets it rip after he hits his back foot, plants everything in the ground and drives that ball to Romeo Doubs. This is kind of, the kind of playing within the offense that we want to see Jordan Love have, week in and week out as we continue to progress through the season. So from the 8-yard line, we find the Packers out there, and Romeo Doubs just wins this route. He's matched up against Eddie Jackson, decent safety, but Doubs is an outstanding route runner, and he just beats Jackson across his face. And Love, hesitates a little bit, hitches, actually probably steps up too far. And JT O'Sullivan called this out in the QB school breakdown of the film as well, that really Love was stepping up and putting himself into a position to make the throw more difficult, really. He had enough time that he could have stayed back where he was in the pocket, take a little hitch, but you don't climb the pocket the way he did and deliver that ball to Romeo Doubs still. The next play I want to look at was a miss that he had to Malik Heath. The one target that Malik Heath had on the day was on this little in-breaker, about 10 to 12 yards down the field. And I don't know if Love was expecting Heath to break that route later, and he was just going to put the ball on him right at the top of that route stem, or if that was expected for Malik Heath to just sit down and basically have it be like a curl route. And just one of those things where, again, a young receiver, a rookie, undrafted guy, who granted played a lot with the ones as camp went on, and even got some of that playing time in the last preseason game, but there's still that learning curve and that timing and progression where the receiver needs to know where Jordan Love is expecting him to be on given plays. And that was just a telltale sign of a miscommunication on that part. It wasn't a throw that was in harm's way, no risk of a turnover on that particular throw, but it does look like a bad miss from Jordan Love, though I'm assuming some of that is just miscommunication between him and the receiver, and I'm not going to blame one or the other on that one. I think that's just something that we're going to see work out through the rest of the year. And we'll follow that up with another miss that Jordan Love had here. And this was one that, this one people are really looking at as a bad overthrow from Jordan Love. But I'm looking at the placement of this ball and considering where Luke Musgrave was in comparison to the defender, which I believe is Jaquan Brisker. I think, Musgrave needed to read the field in front of him and see where the opening was, rather than breaking that more towards the sideline on like a corner route. He needed to stretch that ball more vertically, which actually Greg Olsen talked about during the broadcast as well, is that he's got to kind of step that foot in the ground and break it upfield a little bit more, actually referencing the fact that it's easier to break back down like laterally than it is to go from a lateral break and then get back upfield again. You lose a lot of that momentum. And I think that one, Love is probably getting some bad looks from people on that throw, but I'm going to probably blame Musgrave a bit more on that particular rep. The exact next play, saw a bit of Love's third down magic. He hits Jaden Reed on a crosser here, and this is one that about looks like a no-look pass. I mean, he's technically looking at Reed, but the direction that Reed's coming from, he doesn't follow and lead where Reed's going with his eyes. Especially his shoulders and his hips are turned towards the direction that Heath was coming from rather than the direction that he was going to. And that really helped freeze that linebacker. And once Reed passed behind the linebacker, Lowe was able to hit him, really kind of just torquing his body. And you see some of that, which actually looks a lot like a Rodgers-esque kind of throw. And a great completion there on third down. And again, right after that play, this is as the clock's expiring towards the end of the second quarter. 2-minute drill work here. Love is trying to hit Dontavion Wicks here, but just puts a little bit too much on this ball. And it was a really tight window throw that he was trying to thread this one in. Probably not the best choice. This had a little bit of a risk involved with the corner dropping back there, number 6, getting in the throwing lane a bit there, and I think he actually got a hand on it. But that would have been one that, if 6 makes just a slightly better play on that ball might be going the other direction. We're taking points off the board for the Packers. One of the few possibly turnover-worthy plays by Love in this game, like the other one that would have come to mind, would come on this play that we're going to look at here in a minute here, where Love fumbled the snap, but then was able to find Luke Musgrave deep on a wide leak, the tight end leaking across the formation there. I mean, we've talked a little bit about Jaden Reed already through some of these passes, but Jaden Reed came up big, 2 of his catches coming on third downs. And this was another one right here. Another outbreaking route here from him, and just outstanding play design. And Love sees the opening and just delivers a beautiful pass to Reed on this one. And then right after that is the play where, unfortunately, Love fumbles a snap, but luckily enough, the defense was already kind of in a bit of a broken coverage, and that Y leak was wide open. I mean, ideally, you don't have Luke Musgrave backpedaling quite as long as he is to receive the pass here, but Love was able to gather his composure, really showed great poise, in particular on this play. This is probably like exemplary of just kind of how Jordan Love plays out there at quarterback. Always cool, calm, collected, and none of the moment is too big for him. And this one in particular, gets a great bounce and able to grab it up, but in the moment still knew exactly where he needed to go and what he needed to do, got into a position to throw the ball, and delivered a nice pass deep to Luke Musgrave. Ideally, again, Musgrave isn't backpedaling. That goes for a touchdown rather than, just a deep completion, but still, I'll take a deep shot like that, especially a wide open guy. You don't want to miss the layups like that one, which damn near did by fumbling the snap. And finish off that drive with just a dot on the back shoulder fade. Again, just seeing that trust between Romeo Doubs and Jordan Love, it is going to be something that we're going to see, I think, for years to come here, where those two are going to be a dynamic connection. When you throw Christian Watson into the mix, which we haven't seen a lot of those two on the field at the same time, even dating back to last year when Rodgers was still the quarterback, I think those two are going to be an outstanding duo. And then you just add Jaden Reed into the slot, and I think if all of the pieces deliver, Luke Musgrave, and just so many mismatches that the Packers offense can create with those. And then you've got guys like Aaron Jones, who is still the man that this offense runs through right now. If we start to see all of these pieces getting on the same page, getting more time out there together as a unit, and they start to just put things together, I think this offense can be just, among the tops in the league as early as, the end of this year. So let's see what happens. It was 1 week. It was the Bears. The Bears did not have a good defense last year. We don't know if this is a matter of Jordan Love and the Packers offense is great and the Bears defense was okay, or if this is like, hey, the Packers offense looks fine because they were playing the Bears. Let's see, it's going to be a little bit of a different challenge this week against the Falcons. The Falcons have a bit more of an aggressive defense. Those safeties, I think, are going to make things a little bit more difficult on Jordan Love this week, especially as Jesse Bates, out there, baited Bryce Young, the first overall pick, to 2 interceptions in his first career start. He's going to try to do the same against Jordan Love. And we'll see, if the narrative is still trending in this same direction following week 2.